It's you liberals who have lifted them up, Howard.
Paul, you conservatives make a mistake. You can't afford to strangle hope in people. Without hope, people become dangerous.
No, Howard, you liberals have let them invade our society. You give them jobs, political jobs.
Paul, you missed the point. It's only the smart ones we move up.
That makes it even worse.
No, we have to move them up. If we leave a smart one in the ghetto, he might develop into a leader against us. But if we raise him up into white society, we neutralize him. He feels compelled to try to act like us. He loses his identity and his racial anger, if he has any. He becomes alien to his brothers. They realize he sold them out, and they grow to hate him. He becomes worthless to them and safe for us. No, thank you. In fact, in his love for the creature comforts, except for his color, he's become one of us.
Image production by Hood Research. My name is Theo Broughton, co-founder of Hood Research, and my co-host,
Thabiti, and we welcome you to the program.
And it's a wonderful day once again. We are clearly into spring, and I am so happy about that. You know, I enjoyed each weekend when I have an opportunity to be out in the community at the various meetings and enjoy those of you who watch this show and other shows and attend the meetings that we have. One this coming Saturday is the Hood Research meeting at Dabo, 12048 Grand River on the corner of Wyoming. Meeting will begin at 2 p.m. And Deetta Wilcoxon, along with Professor Michael Griggs, are going to be holding a panel discussion this coming Saturday. 2 p.m. we will be at Dabo. For those of you who are thinking about sponsoring this show, and I thank all of those of you who do, please make your check or money order out to Hood Research or to WHBR Broadcasting Company if you prefer. We have no objection to that, but we ask that you send it to P.O. Box 4416, Detroit, Michigan 48204. Again, that's P.O. Box 4416, Detroit, Michigan 48204. We have with us this morning a guest from all the way from California, and Dr. Laura Kelly. And the reason for having her on with us this morning is so that we can learn about osteoporosis, that which affects our bone structure, and also how we can fight against having the destruction of our bones to cripple us into the ways in which we would never look forward to, and also to find some ways to counter that for our loved ones as well. Dr. Laura Kelly, are you with us?
Hello, Dr. Kelly.
Can you hear me? Dr. Kelly?
I apologize again. Now, these buttons, there's too many buttons here. Hello, Dr. Kelly. I apologize for that.
Hi.
Oh,
Happy
hi.
Monday.
Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes. I want to thank you so much for joining us this morning, because I do understand it is 6 a.m. Or a little after 6 a.m. out in California. So I appreciate you being up with us this morning. And
yeah, of course.
The information that you have is so valuable. So one, we want to spend the time with you sharing. Well, I guess first of all, perhaps you could explain what osteoporosis is for those who are tuned in who may not know. And there's another osteopenia, which is even worse. If you can explain those two to us, perhaps we can start with that.
Sure. Well, osteopenia is actually the lesser form of osteoporosis. So osteoporosis is more aggressive.
Yes.
What happens is, generally speaking, in women, as you lose estrogen and lose hormones as you age, the bone itself goes through a process of turnover.
Okay.
Bone isn't solid like a rock. It changes. It grows every day, and it breaks down every day. And it goes through this turnover process. And as you lose hormones, this process changes and slows down. So you lose a certain amount of bone as you age. Unfortunately, in this country and in a couple of other countries, that process is very accelerated. And so you end up with more bone loss than you really would have otherwise. So if you have a little bit of bone loss, you call it osteopenia, which is about 2 standard deviations underneath the norm, which is the norm being like a 30-year-old. And then you move into osteoporosis, which is 2.5 or greater number on the DEXA scan. And then the problem is you run the risk of fracture. And fracture is really the problem of osteoporosis, because if you fracture your hip and you're older, there's a much more chance of mortality.
Do children, are they subject to get osteoporosis or osteopenia?
Children?
Children.
Is this?
They can. I mean, there can be genetic reasons why your bones don't grow or turn over properly, but they're fairly rare. If you're very, very deficient and you really don't receive much nutrition as a child, then you can have bone problems as well. And that's the sort of point about osteoporosis. In most cases, I'd say, I mean, this is a guess, but 90-something% of cases, 95, maybe even higher, is that this is actually a dietary deficiency. And it's giving rise to a disease process, but it's not a disease in itself, in my opinion.
Oh, okay. Now, there in the book you talk about those things that destroy the bones, supplements, and I guess other things that we need to be aware of and avoid.
Such as like the calcium pills, for example, which is a really important point. If you look at more the traditional cultures who had lower rates of osteoporosis than we do, far lower, their average intake of calcium is somewhere around 600 milligrams, and that's half of what we're getting recommended these days. And as you look at the research, when you're raising the levels of calcium supplementation, you're seeing much, much higher increases of cardiovascular problems. So what you're seeing is there's the calcium not going into the bone and going to other places, for example, into the vessels.
Wow.
So
what other what cultures have lower cases of osteoporosis?
Well, traditionally the diets in Asia led to about half or less the rates of osteoporosis.
Okay.
Those numbers are changing as their diets are changing.
More Western?
Yeah, they're going more Western and they're getting more chronic disease.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm curious. I'm Thabiti, the co-host for Theo, and what I'm curious about is, I guess, could you give us an overview of what our bones are in terms of what minerals or enzymes or et cetera that might compose them, and then we can get into the things that destroys that?
Sure. Yeah, there's 2 ways that the bone is built, 2 pieces of building bone. And one of them is the scaffold, which is literally like a scaffold. And the second piece, the second process is the laying down of the mineral onto the scaffold. So the scaffold itself is basically made of collagen, which is amino acids. And those amino acids get secreted by the bone cells, the generating bone cells. And they need to have certain trace minerals in order to link to each other. And if they don't link to each other properly, it's an unstable scaffold. So you need vitamin C to help that link, and you need trace minerals like silica and boron. And then you'll have also magnesium and phosphorus. So you'll have a very strong scaffold if you have all of the pieces present at the same time. Then on top of that, the bone cells start laying down like a paste of calcium. It's essentially calcium. It's mostly calcium. So that's calcium and phosphorus. And if you have a strong collagen scaffold and you have everything present, you're going to get a nice strong bone. But the problem comes more in getting the calcium from the food to the bone itself, because there are a bunch of steps that have to happen along the way for the calcium to get to the bone.
Okay.
And that's where we generally see the nutritional deficiency problems. Because if you eat calcium, you have to have vitamin D in your body right then, or else it doesn't get absorbed through your intestine. And once the calcium is in the bloodstream, there's a hormone that has to get activated called osteocalcin, and you have to activate that with a combination of magnesium, vitamin D, and a vitamin called vitamin K2. And vitamin K2 is mostly missing from the Western diet at this point. So you're not activating the osteocalcin, which is not directing the calcium to the bone. And that's really the step where I think a lot of the problems come in this culture.
K2. Oh, okay. The number 2, is that correct? K2?
K2, uh-huh.
2,
Yeah.
You know, I was reading about trace minerals, and I know that you spend an extensive amount of time demonstrating the nutrition and the foods, and I think that's fantastic, because it seems to me that in today's colleges, our doctors don't get enough time or class time on the necessity for right foods in their patients, or in everybody actually. And so when you go to them, they don't seem to know what to tell you to eat or don't eat, you know.
Right, for sure.
And you spend a lot of time in your book.
The requirement for medical school is 25 hours, I believe. And it's actually not even a requirement, it's just a recommendation.
Wow, that's not even
so
a day.
So
it's barely a
it's just
day.
not part of the way that medicine has been done, and Western medicine has been done.
Right.
And it's changing. I mean, I think that a lot of modern physicians, especially the younger ones, are realizing that the chronic disease problem can't be fixed with the pharmaceuticals.
Right.
And there has to be other ways, and the ways are nutrition. Because again, if you look at the origins of these quote-unquote diseases, all of the chronic diseases, not just osteoporosis, heart disease is huge, same, diabetes is the same, blood pressure problems are often the same. The basis of these are dietary deficiencies, if you get down to it.
Oh, okay. Now that's something we have to talk about. There's someone on the line who may have a question for you. We have Dr. Laura Kelly, who is a scientist in addition to being a doctor, and has discovered ways of strengthening our bones. See who that is.
You're on the air, caller. Could you give us your name and how are you viewing us, please?
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for
okay.
calling.
I didn't hear the click in, so I didn't know if I was on or not.
Oh,
but I just
you're
walked
on.
in the door. Okay, but I just walked in the door, so I'm not sure what the subject is. But now that I'm hearing that we're talking about health issues,
Yes.
I frequently swim in gym, and I do dance classes. I work out, but I do have issues with my side. It's like from the left side, from my all up and down my thighs and my back, and usually my hip. I have pain. Sometimes I have to sit down when I'm dancing because I have pain in that area. Is it the food that I'm eating, or is it the way I'm sleeping? I don't know. So I'm going to listen further to see if you have any, information that I could use to deal with that type of pain. I know I got my mineral rich, so I better start drinking it.
All right.
Well, I can't diagnose you from over the phone, but I can say that just right off of the bat, listening to you, it's all on the same side of the body and it's sort of up from one joint to the next joint, like your hip and your knee and things like that, that's generally speaking probably a bone issue, not a bone deterioration issue, but one of the bones may be out of place. And what happens is any of the bones along a side of the body that are out of place is going to shift the way that the muscles are lengthened. One of them is going to get short on one side and one of them is going to get long on the other side. And this isn't something that you're going to notice, but this is something that the brain is going to notice.
Okay, because a lot of people told me I look like I'm lopsided.
Yes. So it sounds like your muscles are compensating for something being out of place. And that's a structural issue. So that would require going to like an osteopath, maybe the medical doctors that train in more bone and body work, or a chiropractor.
Thank you.
That's how I would approach it.
Thanks.
Thank you for calling. And for those of you who tuned in who also want to ask Dr. Laura Kelly a question, the numbers here are 868-0342, 868-0351, or 868-4336.
I wanted to ask you, Doctor, also, since you mentioned vitamin D, and particularly in the northern, during the wintertime in the northern hemisphere, we get less sunlight, so therefore we get less vitamin D. What is the relationship between calcium and vitamin D, and how important is vitamin D in terms of our overall bone health?
Well, vitamin D is really all vitamins and minerals are important, but one of the reasons vitamin D is so important is that even beyond bones, it interacts with our genes. About 5% of our genes interact directly with vitamin D, which actually becomes a hormone after we take it in. So you can imagine that if your genes aren't functioning properly, you're going to end up with lots of problems, because what you're talking about with genes is you're talking about making proteins and running the body. But the vitamin D itself, directly in terms of bones, is really the most essential piece of absorption of the calcium in the intestines. The way that the calcium gets through the wall of the intestine into the bloodstream requires vitamin D for most of that. You can do it without it, but the absorption becomes maybe 5%. And if you have vitamin D, you're going to end up with 100%. So it's absolutely essential if you want to be absorbing the calcium to strengthen the bones.
Okay. So now some would say, well, I guess I'll have to sit on the front porch and eat so that when the sun shines on me, I'll get vitamin D.
That's great. Absolutely. I mean, as humans, our main source of vitamin D is the sun. And as Thabiti mentioned, it's like the northern places in the world, for example, like the Scandinavian countries, have the highest rates of osteoporosis in the world, plus the U.S. The reason why the Scandinavians do is because of the vitamin D winter, where there's barely any sun during the winter. The reason why America has the high rates as Scandinavian countries has more to do with diet.
Ah, okay.
But the other piece of this is that there are genetics for the way your body translates and uses vitamin D. So everybody can have a different way. Like one person might be able to sit in the sun on the porch for 20 minutes and eat a meal and get enough vitamin D. And me, for example, I have really bad vitamin D genetics. So if I don't take 10,000 units a day, which is very high, then my levels drop very quickly. And that's because of my genetics.
Oh, wow. Okay. So now you're recommending that we purchase vitamin D, or do we get it from other food sources at all?
Yeah, well, it's very hard to find in food sources. It's in salmon, and it's in salmon eggs and things like this. I know a lot of companies fortify milk with vitamin D because it's very hard to get from the diet. But the point with vitamin D is, like I said, with the genetics, there's no way to know what your levels are, and there's no way to know how your body deals with it. So there is no across-the-board recommendation on how much you should supplement.
Okay.
It's really based on how much you have in your bloodstream at the time. So you need to test and find out, and then you need to understand your genetics to understand how much to actually add to your body.
Now when you
There's
mention
really no other way.
Now, when you mention just genetics, are we talking about various ethnicities and their ability to either retain or not retain vitamin D?
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily fall like 100% in the borders of ethnicity, but for example, you'll find in Japan that there's a much higher level of good, well-functioning genes for vitamin D, and in, for example, women in the U.S., there's a 40% lower functioning of genes overall. So yes, it does have to do with it is sort of cultural in that way, generally.
But now when you talk about the Asian countries, their diet consists of more seafood than others, right?
It does. It does indeed, yes.
Okay. Can we talk about the food items that we should either use sparingly or avoid altogether that could impact the bone?
Sure. Well, I mean, the basic principles for any kind of health are that the foods that are closest to their natural form, like the way they come out of the earth, are the best. And I can illustrate this with, for example, milk. The way that milk comes naturally, if you don't process it, there are milk sugars and milk proteins, but then there's also something in the milk itself, which is an enzyme that helps your body break down that milk sugar, milk protein. And when you change the chemical structure of that milk by heating it very high and pasteurizing it and processing it, you kill the enzyme that assists your body to break this down. So you end up with people that have quote-unquote lactose intolerance because they can't break down the lactose because by processing they've killed the natural enzyme that was present. So a lot of foods provided by nature are provided in these forms where there's the food itself and then there are also adjuncts and pieces within the food naturally that help our body process them. So the more you process these foods outside, like with high heat, for example, a lot of processed food is heated to very high temperature, you're killing any of those naturally present enzymes and helpers. So you end up not being able, your body ends up not being able to use the food, if at all, maybe not very efficiently.
Well, you know,
so this is one issue.
Right. Well, I appreciate that explanation. Now, I stopped drinking milk some years ago, cow's milk, that is, because I always felt it was for baby cows. However, there are some milks that have come on the market that are made from cashew, almonds, coconut, oats. Have you done some testing in your, science research with those?
Well, I've looked at them nutritionally, and I like oat milk personally. I mean, oats are generally pretty good for you. There isn't too much detriment.
Yes.
The only one of those that I don't really recommend is almond milk, and that's because almonds are very good for you, but they're very high in something called omega-6, and the American diet is already very high in omega-6, and omega-6 can act as an inflammatory. So if you're eating a lot of almonds, you're getting a lot of omega-6 and not very much omega-3. And the omegas need to be balanced to keep your inflammation down.
Okay, so wait now. Omega-6 causes inflammation in high...
It can if it's,
okay.
It can if it's out of balance with the 3 and the 9.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
What other food items should we be aware of or beware of?
I mean, again, it's really hard to say because if, for example, with milk, using as an example, if you're processing it, it's not really the real food that it was before, and if it's not processed, then it is. So this is kind of an issue with a lot of the foods these days, is that they're processed and they're not really what they were before.
Right.
Now, would organic be one of the better choices in terms of something that has a higher level of purity?
Yeah, it can be. The way that the organic is sort of run in this country allows some things to get through that you might not want. So it's not 100% foolproof way to go about it. But certainly, if you're dealing with things like meat or dairy products, I would absolutely go towards organic for that.
We have a caller that may have a question for you. I'm going to bring them into the conversation.
Yeah.
Hello, caller. You're on the air. Would you share your name and how you're viewing us, please?
Hi, this is Vera speaking, Comcast 91.
Hi, Vera.
And my question, I'd like for the doctor to discuss taking too much calcium.
8304.
Because my doctor told me I had too much calcium, and I think it's because I was drinking the coconut almond milk, which is 45% calcium, and the coconut milk was like 30%. The flax milk was like 30%, and I was taking a calcium supplement of 1,000 milligrams. So hopefully when I go back to the doctor, she'll tell me that I've reduced the calcium content. So I'd like for you to discuss how you can take too much calcium.
Sure. Hi, Vera. Yeah, that's one of the sort of big issues that we have to deal with in this country is that the standard recommendation from the doctor is to take a calcium supplement as you get older if you're a woman. And as I think I mentioned before, there's a great increase in cardiovascular problems when you have too much calcium in your system and your body is not able to process the calcium properly because you don't have the other pieces that are required. So reducing the calcium supplementation in general is a good thing to do. If you're taking something above sort of 1,200, 1,000, 1,200, 1,400, plus you have a sufficient calcium in your diet. Now that's something that you have to look at, and it sounds like you have. But the other key piece of that is even if you did have a lot of calcium, even if you kept taking that supplement, your body requires that you have all of the pieces that I spoke of before and to get the calcium where it's supposed to go. Because the danger of too much calcium in the system is that it becomes deposited into your arteries and causes plaque deposition and causes, cardiovascular issues. So that's the balance act that you have to make with the calcium.
Okay.
But knowing which other pieces are required is really the key to making sure you don't end up with the calcium deposited somewhere where you don't want it.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you. We have with us this morning Dr. Laura Kelly, and we're discussing the osteoporosis and ways to counter it. Dr. Kelly, can you begin to talk about those recipes or foods that help to strengthen and maintain our bone structure?
Sure. Again, it's really about balance and ratio in terms of food. It's hard to say that there's one food that's going to improve your bones or improve your health because there are almost no foods that contain everything that we need. Mm-hmm. And one of the Western approach to science, to the body, and to nutrition is an isolated component approach, right? We look at how much vitamin D do you need, and then separately, how much vitamin A do you need, and then separately, how much calcium do you need? When in fact, you can't really separate the combinations. Vitamin D and vitamin A are antagonists, and they have to be in the right balance. And generally speaking, they're in different foods. So it's hard to speak specifically about foods. There is one thing which is a very useful recipe in the book, which is called bone vinegar. And this is something that I really like this recipe because you can go out into your yard. Weeds what we've been taught as weeds in our culture are actually very, very rich in minerals and trace minerals and nutrition. It's like herbs. A lot of the cultures that cook with herbs, the herbs are very high in nutrition. And so are these weeds. So if you become somewhat familiar with what's growing around you, you can actually gather them, right? They're free, and you put them into vinegar, and the vinegar acts as a release substance, and it releases all of the minerals and all the nutrients from the plants. So if you let everything sit there for 6 weeks, you end up with the cheapest multivitamin supplement that you can get.
Wow.
And you've made it yourself, and you've sort of had a good time, and you haven't spent any money. You haven't used your car to drive to the supermarket. You haven't paid a corporation to produce a synthetic vitamin. It's completely natural. So to me, that's the place to start. If I had to tell people with one recipe in the book to start to really improve your health, this would be the one.
Before we go any further, first I'd like to let our audience know that we have Dr. Laura Kelly, and the name of her book, in combination with Helen Bryman Kelly, is called The Healthy Bones Nutrition Plan and Cookbook, How to Prepare and Combine Whole Foods to Prevent and Treat Osteoporosis Naturally. Now, would you tell our audience, our listening audience and viewing audience, how they might be able to get a hold of the book, and then we have a caller as well?
Sure. The book is definitely available on Amazon, which seems to be the easiest way for everybody to get it. It's also I don't know if it's in the library in your area, but it has been put into a bunch of libraries. And you can definitely ask if it's not in the library. They'll be able to get it for you. So those are the two ways I know of.
Okay.
We have a caller for you. Okay. Hello, caller. You're on the air. Would you share your name and how you're viewing us, please? Hello, caller. You're on the air.
Hello. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, this is Dee Dee, and I'm viewing you on my cell phone.
Okay.
Okay. I'm lactose intolerant, and I'm really interested in the book because besides the doctor giving me like a vitamin D supplement, I really don't get any of those vitamins in my system because I have to be very careful, in what I eat. So you're saying that these different herbs and things of that nature put in vinegar will help to supplement what I'm missing?
Dr. Kelly, did we lose her?
No.
Oh. Dr. Kelly? Uh-oh. Oh.
Dr. Kelly?
We can't hear the conference line. We're having a technical glitch.
I'm sorry.
No, you didn't do it.
Okay. What we'll do is one of the things, I'll mention the title of the book again as we try to correct this, but it's called The Healthy Bones Nutrition Plan and Cookbook by Dr. Laura Kelly and Helen Bryman Kelly.
And it is available on Amazon.
Thank you, guys.
Hold on, Dee Dee. Oh.
Okay, I'm not really sure what we can do. We do have the caller locked in, but I don't know if something happening on the other end.
Conference call from our engineer, Dr. Kelly.
Okay, we're still working. We're going to have our engineer take a look at this, and want everyone to stay tuned. And the call-in numbers are at the bottom of the television screen as you view it. And again, the book is The Healthy Bones Nutrition Plan and Cookbook, How to Prepare and Combine Whole Foods to Prevent and Treat Osteoporosis Naturally. You can get this book at Amazon. It's by Dr. Laura Kelly and Helen Bryman Kelly.
Try her.
Oh, there she is.
Hello?
Okay.
Yes. Can you hear us now? Dr. Laura, can you hear us now? Oh.
I can hear something strange, like, I finally heard the click
Maybe she'll
on,
call.
that you hear.
Okay. Do you see another line lighting up? Maybe she'll call. Oh, maybe she'll call back. Because I wanted to ask her if dandelions was one of the things she was talking about, I think dandelions are rather common around the area. Okay. Oh, okay.
Okay, do we still have you, Dee Dee?
Because I was going to ask her about ask her about what kind of vinegar, you know.
Yeah. And one of the things I just want to let our audience know, okay, let's just see what we have here now. Hello, caller. Hello, caller.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay,
This is
let
a
me
sun worshiper.
put you on hold just for a second. Hello, caller. Hello, caller, you're on the air. Okay, no one's responding here. Okay, we'll just get rid of it. Hello, did you have a question, sir?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I'm a sun worshiper, Tabiti, and hello, Theo, and God bless Maxine at the studio, and Henry working the thing. You're coming in great on 33.1.
Oh, well, thank you for that. Hello, Paul. Thank you for calling. Yeah.
It's an amazing thing that people would only listen to me. Donate.
Right.
It's free TV, 33.1, 2, 3, and 4. It comes on next to all the other channels, which is just, why can't we just blow it up? And it's greatest TV in the world. And, I mean, you guys look great. Why not just tell the truth? Tell the truth. It's the real deal. I mean, anybody, you can get it on your phone. You can get it on the Internet. You can go and then do this and that. But when it comes just to real free TV, you're on 33.1. I'm hearing and I don't want to be like, tell it all, but it's not a brag, it's a fact. And you got Mr. Tyler, you got the scene, Hip Hop Bibbidi Bob, it was 6 o'clock. It's Time to Rock, 1980.
Oh, okay.
You have, and about me talking about the sun, you had a lady on, and
Right, we're trying to get her back on, Paul. Dr. Laura Kelly.
I'm just trying to say, I'm right here at the studio.
Okay.
And it's easy. It's easy as Michael Jackson, AB, and about me talking about, this and that.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks.
I love Detroit. I mean, come on. I'm going to hang up, but thank you for Mr. Tyler.
All righty. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah,
all righty.
We'll talk later, and then that's enough of me. Thank
all
you.
right. Thank you.
Thanks for the call.
There are some recipes in there that you see.
No, I haven't got the recipe. We'll get another caller.
Oh, okay.
Hello, caller. You're on the air. Would you share your name, please? Hello, caller. You're on the air. Okay. You can't listen to your television because there's a delay. Okay. Temporarily, we're disconnected from our guest, which is Dr. Laura Kelly, who, again, has written a book, The Healthy Bones Nutrition Plan and Cookbook, which I find to be a very interesting book as well, because a lot of us don't take into consideration our overall health. And one of the things I like very much that Dr. Kelly spoke on was the fact that a lot of our food is over-processed, so when it's heated, it loses a lot of its nutritional value. This is something, because I've tried to follow health for a number of years myself, but a lot of the foods she was mentioning, like if we drank whole milk, and we've had someone call on our program before, as you know, Theo, who mentioned if you got the milk from the cow immediately, you would derive the benefits from it. But once they pasteurize it, as Dr. Kelly said, you start losing some of the enzymes and many of the nutritional benefits of it.
Yeah, and just drinking white liquid at that point.
and I would also add that many of you, and I've eaten hominy grits as I don't eat them anymore, but a lot of times you will see a lot of these foods, it says enriched which means that it was stripped of everything it had to begin with, and then in the process they have to sort of dump some of the stuff back in there because otherwise you're just eating empty vitamins, minerals, etc.
Right.
So it's incredibly important for us to be aware of that. Now, one of the things I like to add also is that it says 50% of postmenopausal women who took statins developed diabetes. So she mentioned how the Western medicine was not as really thorough. I believe she said 25 hours, Theo, that it's not required.
That's all they get.
And it's not
when
even
it comes
required.
To nutrition.
We do have a caller. We hope that it's our guest. Hello, caller. You're on the air. Would you share your name and how you're viewing us, please? Hello, caller. You're on the air.
Hello?
Yes, you're on the air.
Laura?
This is Dr. Laura.
Oh, okay.
Wonderful.
Thank you for calling back. I wanted to ask a question. You had talked about gathering weeds from the yard. Would one of those weeds be dandelions?
One of them is dandelions, yep. Dandelion is a really, really useful herb, actually.
Ah.
It's used in a lot of traditional medicines for various things.
Okay.
And we call it a weed, but it's definitely actually a medicine.
Wow.
And one of the things about gathering is learning what's actually growing around you.
I'm sorry. What I was going to ask about then, when you talked about taking the weeds from the yard or dandelions from the yard and soaking them for 6 weeks in vinegar, would that be the brown vinegar or white vinegar, or does it matter?
I like apple cider vinegar, which is brown. Because if you're using it in a raw apple cider vinegar product, you're getting a really excellent bacterial component to the vinegar.
Okay.
Now, I myself use Bragg's organic vinegar, so would anything on that level pretty much be a great addition when you're adding it to the dandelion or other vegetables or weeds from the garden?
Definitely. I use Bragg's too, so.
Okay.
Great.
A follow-up question. You mentioned earlier in our conversation about vitamin K2. Could you give any ideas of sources for vitamin K2?
Sure. There's a couple of forms of vitamin K2, and one of them is MK4 and the other one is MK7. And we don't know from research yet exactly which one is the most effective in terms of bone health. They both appear to affect bone health. Vitamin MK4 is present in some pasture-raised chicken, the key being pasture-raised. And it's also MK7, the whole vitamin K2 is also available in egg yolks, but again, they have to be pasture-raised because as soon as you're putting the chicken into a container, you're blocking the sunlight, you're changing the chemistry of the egg that it produces. Wow. So it's key to have pasture-raised eggs, and you're going to get a good partial, like about half daily dose of vitamin K2 in a pasture-raised egg. It's also in organ meats of, again, pasture-raised beef and pasture-raised animals. We don't really eat organ meat so much anymore. So, again, most people don't have access so much to this vitamin. Unless you're in Japan, which it's in the traditional breakfast food there, which is called natto, in a very high dose, a 350 microgram dose there. So natto is kind of difficult to eat. It's got a very particular taste to it, and generally Westerners don't like it. So the vitamin is hard to get in our diet, and it is one thing that I recommend supplementing with pretty much everyone.
So if you buy it from a health food store, they carry that. Yeah,
there's synthetic versions and then there's natural versions. The vitamin itself is actually a bacterial product.
I see.
So the best supplement companies, you want to make sure that what you're getting is actually a real bacterial product. They'll grow the bacteria, get the vitamin, and then encapsulated, and that's the one that you want.
Oh, I see.
Now, you mentioned in the book also about, as you put it, gut bugs can be your bone's best friend. Could you elaborate on that?
Sure. I mean, generally speaking, if you look at the amount of human cells that you are versus the amount of gut bugs that you actually are, bugs in general, not just in the gut, it's something between 10 and 100 to 1. So we are actually far more other bacteria than we are actually human, which is kind of a crazy idea, but it happens to be true. So we actually, the way that we digest our food, the way that that food gets turned into nutrition that our body can actually use, broken down, hormone production happens in the gut. The immune system is primarily in the gut, maybe 80% of it. So most of our bodily function actually happens from the gut. And that means that we have a healthy system, full of healthy gut bugs. There are good gut bugs and there are bad bugs, right? And another key to long-term health is the density of the population. The more population, more types of good bugs that we see in the gut, the longer people tend to live.
Now, go ahead.
I was going to ask.
Go ahead, Dean.
Sure. Okay, what I was going to ask is, with the kind of scientific research you're doing and the positive responses that you're getting in our healthcare system falling apart, how can we help to get the message across that can help all of us in this nation?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's something that I'm trying to do. I'm trying to build a platform for patients, which is an actual something that I want to give to patients, which helps people organize the real data that they need. I mean, one of the things that we see, like in emergency rooms, for example, with heart attacks, is that 75% of the people that have a heart attack have normal or good cholesterol labs. So the tests are not really indicating the problems. So what I'm trying to create is a platform that I want to give to patients, which are organizing their nutritional data, but their real nutritional data.
So and you're saying the patients will be able to monitor their own health?
Yes, I think that's key in the system, because especially with nutrition, it's not complicated. Everybody knows what vitamins are. And you can have tests which are going to tell you this is how much you have in your body, this is what you need. And then if you look at your genetics at the same time, which the tests you can do yourself at home, you send them in and you get the information, you can monitor your own health.
Oh, that's wonderful. You know, sadly, over the years, oftentimes people will go to a doctor and whatever the doctor says, they just follow blindly without questioning. But what you're proposing is making the patient a part of their own maintenance, if you will, of their health.
Absolutely. Well, that's the only way that it's actually going to work, because in this type of situation, 50% of Americans have at least one chronic disease.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Hello? And this is a huge problem. I talked about earlier, there are no answers within the present system. The only thing is for people to change their habits at home. So they're going to need the assistance of tools that are going to help them do that. Because I, as a doctor, can't be there every day cooking for them or guiding them on a daily basis.
Right.
But if they have the tools to help themselves, then they'll be able to monitor themselves and fix themselves.
Okay, we have a caller
in the state, as you say, of the healthcare system, it's really necessary, I think.
Okay, we have a caller who may have a question for you, Dr. Kelly. Hello, caller. You're on the air. Could you give us your name and how you're viewing us, please, and maybe a question for the doctor?
Good morning, my wise and progressive friends.
Happy Monday, Sam.
I would like to ask the doctor if when she talks about gut, is she referring to probiotics, and are there good probiotics that she may recommend. I'll hang up and listen.
Oh, all right.
Thanks for the call.
Thank you.
Great. I'm sorry I didn't hear your name. Yeah, definitely. In the present situation, we have antibiotics being prescribed. We have some maybe in the meats and a lot of the food products and in the waters, even our SIP waters.
Okay.
So taking probiotics is a good thing for everybody. When you look at the zones where people live the longest, you find that they have diets very high in bacteria. So these are things that we definitely want to be doing. It's a new science, the probiotic science, and there are a lot of products. And the people have different colonies and different types of bugs, and there doesn't seem to be any reason. Like you can be in the same family and be the daughter of someone, and you'll have completely different bacteria. So it's very unspecific still, and it's hard to recommend something that's going to work for everyone. It's a trial and error process sometimes. I personally use a product called Dr. Ohhira's. I'm not affiliated with them in any way. I like the product. It's a very naturally fermented vegetable product, so it's exactly what would be happening in your gut. And I find that it works really well.
Again, I want to just be, as we get to near the close of the show, mention to everyone that we're speaking with Dr. Laura Kelly, and the book was The Healthy Bones, Nutrition Plan and Cookbook, Medicine Through Food Guide.
And you have a website. Can you share that with us?
Sure. It's medicinethroughfood.com. And you can read a little bit about me and access the book website from medicinethroughfood.com.
Okay. Medicinethroughfood.com?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's easy enough. All right. I'm glad that you shared that with us. And for all of you who have access to the computer, you can log on to Dr. Laura's website and get additional information. That is great. I'm really appreciative that you had the time to share with us this morning and didn't mind waking up with the chickens, shall I say that?
If I could,
it's pretty nice out, actually.
If I could just interject a quick question as we get near the end, what are the effects of GMOs in your opinion in terms of our nutritional benefit or lack of?
Did we lose her?
Dr. Kelly?
I'm back. I didn't hear you.
The negative aspects of GMOs in our food and what we're trying to strive for in terms of nutritional benefits.
Yeah, well, that's a big topic.
Or is it a topic by itself?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the thing is that the body that we have hasn't changed in forever. It's the same body that grew with the rest of nature. Right? We all grew together, all the plants and all of our body and everything. There is one way in which that system works perfectly and optimally. And as soon as you start altering the pieces that are going into that system, you don't know what you're doing. You're playing with things that you don't know the outcome of.
And we definitely won't have a balance in our bodies.
You don't know what you're throwing off when you're dealing with something like genetically modified food.
Right.
So you don't know how that's going to affect your genetics, your own personal genetics, first of all. It's probably going to have an effect on those. And we're not going to know the outcome of that playing around with that for another, 15 years. If you look at studies in rats, what you see is that a lot of the genetically modified foods cause sterility.
Wow.
So they, over 3 or 4 generations,
maybe
they
that's
stop
what
producing children.
Well, if that's what it does, then that's another method by which to control the population around the world. I didn't know GMOs might sterilize people. Whoa. Well, I'm sorry to have to say that we're at the end of the program, but I really do appreciate you being with us, and I'm looking forward to you being able to come to Michigan and to Detroit in particular and have some book signings and further discussions with those who are tuned in and those who are out in our community. And thank you so much for your time. And we will be in touch. You're welcome. And for those of you, I always, all right.
You're welcome.
I always say it's not necessary for you to know everything. What is necessary is for you to know how to find what you need when you need it. And we at Hood Research gather as much information as we can to share with you to help us all make better informed decisions. Thabiti.
If you want to be nothing, do nothing. The only problem with doing nothing is you never know when you're finished.
And we ask that you tune in again next week. And we are looking forward to you being with us at our Hood Research meeting this Saturday at Dabo at 2 p.m. And now stay tuned for
Get in the Know
with Marley B.